Let's go. Hallelujah, God is good all day, every day. When I wake up in the morning, I give thanks and I pray. I wrote this verse and I give thanks and pray. I spoke the blood to get it back, then I give thanks and pray. Lord, please forgive me, I'm a fornicator. My soul is getting pleasure now, please don't hurt it later. I believe God the creator, not a terminator. Only a man will send a soul to an incinerator. Man is the perpetrator, and I'm offended. Man, you got the whole world tripping if you're scared, go to church. I ain't been in years. Shed so many tears. Hell, there is no fear. Hell is a myth, and Satan don't exist. God is the Alpha and the Omega, that is it. Hell is a myth, and Satan don't exist. God is the Alpha and the Omega, that is it. All there every day. So I give thanks and praise. All there every day. So I give thanks and praise. God is good all day, every day. So I gotta give thanks and praise. Hey, God is good all day, every day. So I gotta give thanks and praise. Hey, second verse.
Now, normally, my notepad end up like the beach of Normandy. A lot of carnage, a lot of casualties. Seen on my Robert Horry thing, big shot Sean. Living evidence, proof and hot knocked on. Fucking with your bitch, getting head about her ass. Wouldn't fuck with you if she had her head about her ass. Lousy husband, I made a splendid dad. It was like popping the top off a shaking soda, it fizzled fast. The writing was on the wall like hieroglyphics. I was selling bullshit that was very buyer specific, admired. The murder for hire, lyrics sometimes talents the gas that sets fire to friendships, four alarm blades, a forecasting the pain is hell and out of me like a wise colder than rain. My frigid heart got my temper short of the midget card. The victory got amazing the mox in this arm. So whenever you was still in the feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you're rolling with me. If you're feeling the feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you're rolling with me. You love the feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you're rolling with me. You ever feeling that bring you close to me, let this testimony make me feel as if you roll. You ever feel so sure about something no one can tell you different? You're passionate about it when you spoke, people can love to listen. This is a place on life's map you seldom visit. See success is fighting and failure if you never lived it. The pressure make you give it, now your truth is thicker and smoking and wilding, which stimulates hypothalamus, increases appetite, but don't get to biting off hours. That's a death sentence. We got 7 direct sentences. We're penmanship and flow watches blow up like meth kitchens. We get making is accidental like bad spenders. Our hook game is similar to luau cinders. My mode is taking places you can't reach on a spaceship, so we are not subject to the current trash on the station. And I could buy my mama a beautiful house of spacious with a garden to pray so she could feel closer to angels and get my children any and everything that they want, just so long as they get traced to the father they came. So whenever you were still in the feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you're rolling with me. If you're feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you're rolling with me. You ever feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you're rolling with me. Feeling to bring it closer to me, let this testimony make you feel as if you roll with me.
I'm on, you know me. Rooted in the ghetto, I'm in it with both feet. Shoot with the shoes, knock the top off a Judas. Stick a move, give me space while I do this. Holders, holla hooters. They'll find out when I see them. Diddy in their face when I meet them. I serve shit until they don't piece. On their face like Oakley's, and we play it back in slow speed. We that klepto shit that go. Ride so through the ghetto and let go with the metal. Do that ear to ear, I'm a klepto running off gear. Sharp as a spear in the Zulu nation. Fill ear holes with laces. I'm far from basic. When I state my skill, my squares can't take the real. I'm just real. I show through the ghetto and let go. Back go into the ghetto. I'm in it with both feet. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto, ghetto. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto and let go. Back go into the ghetto. I'm in it with both feet. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto, ghetto. Back go, back go. When I step in the function, it's funk, you know me. Black with the wet ass murder with some season. Murder open dollar shit, Mr. Zero Tolerance. Steal 7 heels with the steals, making out right there. I'm so universal, getting money with my bloodshot eyes. No rebirth, whatever it's gonna be. I'm Sonoma Mona V. 1-4-D, like I'm half OT. Hit it with OP, or something from no sleeps. Yeah, I'm 24/7 riding, increasing my currency. Nike Air Max with it, new era happening. Standing with the and about to play up on their back. Straight out the trap with the king of the cavalry. Mobbing with the side connection, it's automatically. Ain't about giving, it's just maintain benefit. I'm playing more down to make them vacate. I show through the ghetto and let go. Back go into the ghetto, I'm in it with both feet. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto, ghetto. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto and let go. Back go into the ghetto, I'm in it with both feet. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto, ghetto. Back go, back go.
I'm in love with my gun, bullets knock down crocodiles. That means, yes, swing sharpshooter. Well, turn his head to papoose and cheese. Uh-oh, barcode, red bean, yes. Touch him like an iPad while he at the pass. Blood on the screensaver, 4-5. Wow. Chrome plated, your guns don't work. They outdated, I spray cans. Yes, graffiti artists, turbo shots, make a break in like Domingo. I give him Cinco, then Mayo with the fofo.
Next night, he's a cool rebel. Nigga, yes, you swear. Be riding through the ghetto. Passenger seat with the M16. Bustin' that heavy man. Trying to switch the block. Nash on the back streets. They cop. Shake the heat and they get a shot. This black LB, yo, turn it from up and walk. Run to your spot. It'll be like my nigga shot. Shot.
I'm back though through the ghetto, got the bang waving. Young thugs in my day, it was slow shaking. Get the pavement, it's real out of my block. You want some bullshit, cousin, you can get popped. Or get cooked like some dope in a fresh pot. I got some cushions, some cooks, see you at the spot. We don't stop, we keep this thing lit though. Back and forth from the V up to Frisco.
I show through the ghetto and let go. Back go into the ghetto, I'm in it with both feet. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto, ghetto. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto and let go. Back go into the ghetto, I'm in it with both feet. Back go, back go. I show through the ghetto, ghetto. Back go, back go.
Dedicated to my best friend. Yeah. Yeah. My lover and my best friend. I love you, best friend. Hey, black milk on the beat. Yeah. She stood about 5'6" with some nice size tits. SLs make a nigga bust quick. She only gets submissive when I'm giving her the dick. Any other time she bossy playing hard to get. We were friends before lovers, that's some real nigga shit. We both have a past and we recognize this. We don't put a title on our relationship. She lets me do me and I appreciate this. She's my best friend. Sometimes I wish she was my girlfriend. I want her all to myself, fuck her ex-men. I know better than to let my feelings get in the way of our friendship. That will be a sin. But it's hard because she's beautiful and hella cool. She's really smart, like the same things that I do. Now I'm confused and don't know what to do. I'm getting mad when she tells me she talked to other dudes. We argue on the phone. She hang up in my face. I'm feeling bad because we ain't talking in a couple days. I text good morning, love. She replied, good morning, babe. I text back, I apologize.
text back, it's okay. You back talking again, I'm having better days. I got it back, I'll be a charade. I love my best friend. I love her even when she tells me that she don't want to be more than just friends. Cause even though I want her as my girlfriend, my heart knows that it's best she be my best friend. I love you, best friend. Black milk on the beat. My lover is my best friend.
You just as bad as your dog. Yo, it's a given that as long as I've been living, ain't no grown man finna come over, visit, sit back, and just listen like his whole program depending on how this conversation goes. Soak it up just right, and you'll be winning. No, I swear I heard that shit before, like I spilled that shit before. Kind thought and Mr. cleaned up off my kitchen floor. Matter of fact, where you been hiding your pen and paper? You ain't never verbatim, so where you hiding all the paper? I know you been watching off all them girls, you been copping the shit you must have forgot. I wrote the rules, you got a copy, peep your grown man exterior, but what's behind that? What I'm saying, shit Ethereum, cause I can take it back. My name in the game is to come completely original. Imitation is the lowest form of flattery to me. Imitation is the lowest form of flattery to me, cause boy, you got your game from me.
I'm a beast off the lease. I be standing in the streets, turned up like Chris Bosh. I be playing with the heat. Put my gun to the beat, cause I'm demanding to eat. I recite verses or something like a priest. I'm in explosive mode, so I write to keep my head straight. Everybody's telling me it's time for me to detonate. Way before FrostedFlakes.com being great. So I'm finna choke the rap game, I'm a fast snake. I spit game, I advise you to soak it. I was born a drug, got you feeling for a dosage. Foes so sick, I'm killing them, I'm the culprit. If it's for the mail, why stepping no posters? I'm ghost town finest. Bathgate mad hot, cause I'm on top. My head bigger than the mascot. Getting money in Oakland, I don't think a bad spot. 3-digit code on the boat with a padlock. I strike with a flame, don't compare me to matches. Every time you see me, I be sticking like a cactus. Swag up the bar, bitches on me like a jacket. It only take a call to get invited to their matches. Been to 6 states, you won't find me in New England. Stay climbing everywhere I go like the ringless. Shining like a kingpin. I'm doing my thing, man. I'm so fly, you can take a nigga wingspan. We can talk beef if you hungry, I'ma feed you. I move like a cheetah with more stripes than a zebra. It's a cold world, so I bounce out with the heater. Sliding on the nigga till he thinking I'm a visa. I turn soft to hard, actually, he be whipping it. Money on my mind, I find time to be getting it. Niggas who maneuver like hoes be ridiculous. Behaving like a pussy when you're supposed to be hitting it.
Yeah, like I give a fuck. Yo, I'm caring less. Before you talk, grow a pair in a hairy chest. You a juvenile, pre-pubescent. You should stay a while, nigga. You might learn a lesson. Hitting it, getting it from your girlfriend, spitting it. Then you wonder why we ain't feeling it. I'm killing shit. Me and .com coming out the O. Town business, and that's just how the games go. Fuck some entertainment. You niggas nameless. Feeling bad about yourself? My niggas blameless. It ain't our fault you ain't original. TLC, you worse than a silly hoe. Yo, you silly though. Might as well get some clown shoes, a red nose, a rainbow afro, and do what clowns do. Cause what you speaking on ain't up for discussion. How many thirsty dudes out here, man? It's disgusting.
What I said. Betty. Hood in, cause it's rules to the wall. Abide by the code, or you can take that loss. Your life, or your freedom. They try to dumb us down, so we can't reach them. I know. Got billionaires from the hood, we all we got. Together we conquer, divided we fall, don't fall for the plot. We got to own more, fuck the flaws. Invest in yourself, be your own boss. Lead the horse to water, can't make him drink. We too busy trying to catch up on the latest link. Clock's ticking, wait for no man. I'm on my grind, every day about my dough, man. I'm on my cooker, I got the recipe. If it don't affect mine, I'ma let it be. I'm living free, building an empire, so I can kick my feet up and get what I desire. I'm on my cooker, I got the recipe. If it don't affect mine, I'ma let it be. I'm living free, building an empire, so I can kick my feet up, get what I desire. Yeah, nothing comes easy, nothing. I struggle too, never underestimate what the next man went through. Silence, no salad, that's what Foley said. So I'ma do me and get this bread. Chip, that coin, spot the fake, only real ones can join. Fraternity of brothers, the bond can't break. Machete in hand, watching out for the snakes. I take a break, kick my kicks up. They talking, I show you straight fixture. Nothing but hit, bruh, hit straight from stunning. Ring on the board, that head hunting. I'm on my cooker, I got the recipe. If it don't affect mine, I'ma let it be. I'm living free, building an empire, so I can kick my feet up and get what I desire. I'm on my cooker.
Yeah, getting this money, living it up.
Dropping in on 100-foot swell off the coast, drinking my hand blooded up to roast, taking no time to relax my mind, floating on the 7 seas, leaving folks behind. See, my grind is all about the weed and beat, and the shit that I sip to complete my technique. I'm that freak, the street butt naked in the street, but the girls who like my surfboard and their meat. Here's a treat, got you wide open when I speak, as I press fast forward before hitting delete. Ooh, I see, like a step on the brink of jumping in the ocean just so I can think. At the bottom, got drugs? Yeah, I got 'em, and if you need something, yo, no problem. Thumbtack, living life on the road to success, getting wavy out the sanctuary when I'm out west. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. 2 a.m. in the morning and we still ain't done. Crack the dawn with this party till I see the sun rising up from the east, breeze still ice cold. Rolling up another one because I'm feeling bold. Yeah, I got to be at work before it strikes 6. Got a bird in my lap and she's stroking my stick. Eyesight in the big dick and the girl starts to drive at the snaps of the whip. Wild horses on seesaw, penetrating full rawhides and no draws. No flaws, no lumps or bumps on the snacks. I had a wave smash smooth like a Cadillac. Ooh, I drive down her avenue. Thumbtack refuse to lose, to leave it in while I'm busting spread all on the map. I'm Pinocchio, baby, I got some strings attached. Come on. One more hit, one more shot, take it to the top. Champagne bottles go pop, in the Kia 4K, being chased by the cops. This shit don't stop, I'm on the freeway, 94 headed eastbound. Swam in a swimming pool of alcohol and drowned. So wavy, swerving lanes and stuff. The big bad wolf, I huff and puff, and blow the whole house of cards away. Spitting bars on tracks, but no delay. Yo, did you hear what I say? I drop chocolate until I see Judgment Day. Ricky Bobby shaking bass, while the girl is passing cake, Ain't no limit what I make. I stay gravy while I stay awake, Stop, drop, roll. Stop, drop, roll. Stop, drop, roll. Stop, drop, roll.
Start party people don't feel dead. Get your way from the beginning and the wrong.
Stop, drop, roll.
Yeah. Momo, this is a slapper, my nigga. Yeah. Gonna run this shit. Come on. Do it. Niggas, bitches gather round, get your game intact. And if you don't catch it the first time, you can play it back. When I'm done, one of the sickest ones to spit it raw. On my dick so hard, thinking you trying to get me jaw. Back, let me get stacks, proceed to roll sweets. In my face, it seem like you the type to speak to police. So you know I can't fuck with your conversation to the verse, roll smoke a blunt with you. Too many big things on my plate, that's why I say my grace. And watch the cats trying to violate. I'ma wait in the cut, we gon' play to him up. He gon' be like, nigga, please. I'ma be like, nigga, what? Step your game up, that's how you get your chippers up. Yo, them figures up. Yeah, I know this shit is nuts, but we gotta do for bucks. More than just this rapping stuff. Push a hard line until your motherfucking time is up. Come on.
Trying to put this West Coast thing back on the map. Northern Cali's where I'm starting because it's where it's at. Trying to put this West Coast thing back on the map. Northern Cali's where I'm starting because it's where it's at.
One foul associate, then your crew, then your shit crumbles. We fold stacks and all I wanna do is get bundles. I'm sticking and moving like the great Cassius Clay. I need 8-figure stacks I can cash for pay. It's deep in the rap. Most niggas just rap for paper. I'm hot. Been on fire since Gazelles and Curl Activators. OCs and Solies and me could be one of the greatest. When we through with this rap shit, and now one of the most underrated. But I'll take it black. Flip and make cake with that. Be dreaming about paper stacks. Waking up still broke. Hosting over steel pole. Make you wanna cock back. Make you wanna kill folks. I be killing ill beats, rolling up swisher sweets. Call me Osai, call me Mr. Money off the streets. None can compete, coming phony a week. And the purple sticky shit be the only I cheat. We
trying to put this West Coast thing back on the map. Northern Cali's where I'm starting because it's where it's at. Trying to put this West Coast thing back on the map. Northern Cali's where I'm starting because this where it's at.
Laying my raps just like a pimp, he checking his traps, sending the bitch out, bringing that paper back. Making stacks, rolling around like Goldie in a 7 deuce lack. Tacked out OG Kush brought your boy back. Northern Cali got a lot of heat, and that's a fact. Niggas be busting, you hear that clip busting out the strap. I heat a nigga eating off what he laid down on the tracks. The gay cross the park, Keenan since another land. Flying in like I'm on the mothership at a brother land. Replenish for good, I put in the hood, never brag about it, but that's spitting shit. Yo, I'm the man, even if I'm never seen on MTV or BET. I can still take over and captivate a crowd easily. And we broadcasting live from the cell. This is Osai, I'm the mixtape man, we trying to
put this West Coast thing back on the map. Northern Cali's where I'm starting because it's where it's at. Trying to put this West Coast thing back on the map. Northern Cali's where I'm starting because this where it's at.
San Ho the Indian, Dr. Finney. Yeah, check it. Yo, I feel the bass beneath the speakers when I speak a lot. I can have the fans yelling San Ho when I leave the spot. Raise your hands up in the air, cause we gon' finally reach the top. Post another song like every Friday, that's our weekly drop. I need a beat to talk, you know I got a lot to say. I was working crazy nights and wrote my music in the day. Chef it up like Bobby Flay, mixing up the recipe. So go and get a drink and grab a ticket, grab an extra seat. Waiting for the show to start, spitting in on flowing art. Take my money to the bank and fill it up like grocery carts. Coasting like I'm Noah's Ark, waiting for your ship to sail. I'll be shipping merchandise and you'll be sipping something stale. Let's rock until our body goes in shock. Let my music hit the world like balloons about to pop. We gon' party non-stop until we're drunk and pretty faded. Like, hello pretty ladies, you out there, we finally made it, yeah.
Driving, stepping on my grinding. I've been searching for a signing. On and on, it goes and goes and goes. Time will help us break the cycle.
I've been on my grind full time, can't dispose of me. Can't tell me nothing on my own, there's no control of me. This beat is off the hook just like some fishes swimming overseas. Put my hands high into the sky so they know it's me. Don't overheat, I'm mixing genres and it's so unique. Rock and roll and hip hop, about to knock you out your only seat. Grab a fork, it's time to eat. I'm a beast I came to feed. Only took about a day for the word to go and flood the streets. With these guitar riffs, top 5 charts list. Great drinks, good wine, catch me where the bar is. The music's in my soul and underneath is where my heart is. And passion is the key, so if you find it, that's what art is. Let's rock until our body goes in shock. Let my music hit the world like balloons about to pop. We gon' party non-stop until we're drunk and pretty faded. Like, hello pretty ladies, you out there, we finally made it, yeah.
Driving, stepping on my grinding. I've been searching for a signing. On and on, it goes and goes and goes. Time will help us break the cycle. I'm on that daily grind. We are here every night. I do the work for free, but pay me for my time. I'm on that daily grind. We are here every night. I do the work for free, but pay me for my time.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? This is your boy DJ Rowe, and this is Anna's Historical Podcast Radio. Anna, are you in the building?
Yes, I am. How's it going?
Good, good, and you?
Pretty good. Yeah. Let's just hit this Facebook Live. Wow. So it's been a couple weeks. I just was like popping down to the Vallejo City Council to see what's going on with that, because there's always something. And yeah, so I've been like working on my notes today. I'm always like working at it till the last minute. So you actually made it back home with some time to chill today, didn't you?
Oh yeah, a little bit of chill time before the show.
What music were you playing?
Playing San Ho, I played Osai, I played a little bit of Thug Nasty.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? A little bit of Reflective Intelligence, a little bit of Karen Lest. Played a couple of people.
Okay, cool. So Vallejo, down the street from me, there's now a Black Lives Matter mural on the street. Saturday, they blocked off the street. It took like 2 years to get this done. And they figured out, they'd done all this, they had to plan it all out in advance, and there's all these colors. It's really artistic, and different people planned out different letters, but it was basically anybody could just come down and do some painting. So Age came over to do some painting on it because it was just so artistic.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I gotta go check it out. I gotta go take a look at the mural. I haven't seen it yet, but I gotta check it out.
Yeah, you do. The problem is, if you don't know what it is, if you were just looking at it, you couldn't really figure out what it is because it's just kind of too big. It just sort of looks like a design in the street. So that's a little confusing. But you know, I mean, I think it was just very much about the experience. There were different people down there working on it all day. It was real participatory and just in every way, so far as the design, the painting, the planning, and lots of kids. So yeah, other cities have done it, and now Vallejo has. So congratulations to Miss Ascari and everybody that just worked so hard on it. It's really beautiful. And our friend Age made some contributions to it as well. I was just kind of Age, yes. I was just kind of there hanging out. I didn't do any. I was there like almost all day, but I was just hanging out in some of the booths with friends of mine that were there doing. A couple people that were running for office were there. So
how come you didn't do any painting?
Oh, you know, I actually just wasn't really that interested in painting. I mean, I like the idea, but yeah, that's why. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't. Yeah, it was kind of lame, but no, I just kind of I don't know, just too, because part of it is because I know people always say that you can that it's all chill, but it isn't. And I knew that like there'd be somebody going like, do it like this, do it like that. And I actually get, and this is a dyslexia thing, I actually get real confused with directions. And it's really, people get pissed. And yeah, it can just be really fucked up. People get pissed. People think I'm ignoring them. People think I'm disrespecting them. And I'll try and explain it. Like when I'm working on stuff with people, I'll say like, okay, if I look blank, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't understand you. And it's one of those invisible disability things. And, you know, people don't tend to think that like when a grown ass adult is like, you know, speaks pretty well standing there, that, you know, they're more likely to think I'm ignoring them than that I don't understand them. So that's part of it. So my instinct with big projects like with a lot of confusion and they knew what they were doing, but it's just sort of by nature, it's kind of hectic. So my inclination is just to keep my distance. And then once people find out that, and then when I explain it, everybody wants to start talking about how their cousin has dyslexia and whatever. And then this is really unbelievable to me, but people that don't even fucking know me, don't know shit, will start saying, oh, well, you know, your dyslexia doesn't need to stop you. You can do what you want. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Okay, do not tell me what I can or cannot do. Don't tell me about your cousin. Yeah, I mean, it is just so fucking patronizing and it's incorrect. Don't tell people they can do whatever they want to do, because they can't. Nobody can do whatever they want to do. So it is, I mean, I tell people that teach, that work with kids like that, like all the time. Don't tell kids they can do whatever they want. If you just dream, if you just work hard, like, no, you can't. I mean, you know, you can do a lot. It makes a big difference. You know, it makes a big difference, but you know, you can't play, you know, you can't do, you know, you can't be a basketball star if you're not a certain height or whatever.
I don't know about that one.
Well, you can't, come on, like with sports and stuff, like, you know, I mean, yeah, I can do like light weights or whatever, but you know, there's
some basketball players that were actually short that were pretty good, like Spud Webb.
Yeah, they're good, but do they play in the pro leagues?
Yeah, they play in the pros. They work. Well, he doesn't
What
now.
Okay, what do you mean by short? What is short with their
I think Spud Webb was like 5'7".
Okay.
Like he was short. And then there was he used to be on the Celtics. He got floated around to a lot of teams.
Okay, so well, it's just an example. It's just an example, or it's even more like, okay, you can't do whatever you want to do, and nobody can. The world just isn't, And
I know, but I don't know. I kind of feel have a different opinion on it. I mean, sometimes you can't do it. I get how you're saying it, but if you put your mind to stuff, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You could probably do most of the stuff you want to do if you really put the time into it. It could happen. I don't believe you could say it can't happen. I believe you could say it could.
I promise you that you can't. And if you really, I mean, again, it's like you can't go if you have certain limitations, certain biological, physiological, or whatever conditions, you can't. There's stuff you can't do. And
so you would believe, like, I don't know, man. So you believe like if a kid couldn't walk, let's just say they couldn't walk, and everybody but the kid knows that he can't walk. I mean, you would just tell them like straight off, you can't do something because you can't walk. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Well, you need to look at all the options. One of the things that's changed a lot in treatments is because I remember books I was reading where where the focus was on, like, with somebody about a kid that was spastic, and the focus was like spastic. I mean, we had this conversation about like really cerebral about a kid with cerebral palsy, which is spastic. And so they spent all their time teaching her to walk, like hours and hours and hours. It's kind of like you need to, maybe that's what some like like deaf people's experience is like that. Like deaf people, for a long time, the model for deaf people was to teach them to talk and to teach them to read lips. And deaf people there was a lot of deaf people that were not allowed to use sign language. They were forced to speak and learn to lip read, which just took hours and hours and hours. And I mean, I was listening to an interview with a lady who was talking about all the time she spent. And by talking, I mean, when you say talk with with somebody that's using, you still say, the person was talking. This was in sign, she was communicating in sign language. So that's what I mean. And, she was saying, just like, think about all the other stuff that she could have been doing, that she could have been learning with, instead of hours and hours of speech therapy. So, I mean, there's also, I mean, like, if you're talking about, okay, like, are you going to tell somebody whose spinal cord was severed that they can walk? I mean, you can talk, there's medical advances all the time. But I don't know, or like if you there's certain things like professional musicians, most professional musicians start when they're children. So, if you start at, I mean, yeah, you can catch up if you start later in life, but some people can, but you know, if your brain works a certain way, you can be spending hours and hours and hours trying to force your brain to work a different way, or you can figure out how to adapt. You can figure out what works for you. I talked about this book a couple weeks ago called Being Human, about a woman who had polio, and she was in a wheelchair, and you know, she was a disability rights person, and she said she never wished that she weren't disabled. She said she wished that for her, it was like, yeah, she wished the model, it was just a huge change in disability rights that, okay, instead of the world needs to adapt, the world needs to adapt so that everybody can participate. Like, so yeah, I was like, man, lady, you're more evolved than me, because I sure as fuck, I mean, you know, like, yeah, I am, yeah, she's just more evolved than me, because I sure as fuck have wished that I didn't have the disabilities that I do have. But yeah, she was pretty fucking, and so, but okay, so wait, where were we started? How did we get to that? What was the starting point? Just catching up on what is going on. Okay, well, Bruce Willis, the action star, announced that he was retiring from movies because he has aphasia, which is a degenerative brain illness that makes it impossible, where you just forget things, where you can't keep stuff in your mind. So you can't be an actor if you can't remember anything, but he can still appear in movies after selling his digital twin to Deepcake. That's what this company is called, this Russian company that makes digital twins. And so the digital twin is now acting for him.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so I guess they use that with a lot of the Star Wars characters. It's not even the person, it's their digital twin.
So, you know, they're gonna start doing that and trying to start paying them actors less money.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's one thing for Bruce Willis, because he's like a billionaire, but I mean, other people, damn, they're just gonna be fucked. I mean,
that's gonna be bad.
Yeah. It's just really weird. Like, how do you, I don't know. I mean, I was reading about it, and then there was a lot of different images, and I really couldn't figure out which was which, but I'm not I'm not really interested in Bruce Willis movies other than Pulp Fiction.
Speaking of movies, what do you think about the little series that they have out about Jeffrey Dahmer?
Oh, well, I mean, I have no way am I going to watch it. That's what I have to say. I don't understand. I mean, I know people, I mean, I have friends that will just say, you know, they're interested in serial killers, and just so, yeah. And then of course, I mean, it's just so hard on the families. And so it's really hard on the families of his victims. You need to look at who's making money off of that. I mean, I never understood the whole thing with Charles Manson becoming a cult hero or something. That's just disgusting to me. And it was just so hard on the families of his victims. Like, what the fuck? You have to see this guy's face on t-shirts everywhere. That just makes no sense to me. So, you know, I mean, people need to, I was listening to the discussion about it on Najee's show on Monday. I got a little head start on it. So yeah, no way in hell am I going to watch it. I feel like just knowing about that stuff is enough for me. You know, I don't understand wanting to watch it and have more of it in your consciousness, but people sure as fuck do. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, they already had I think it was more of a movie. This is a series, but they had a movie about it. So I agree with you. I don't understand what the series is needed for, because they already kind of had a movie, which was the same thing as the series. So
yeah. Somebody on Najee's show brought up American Psycho, but American Psycho was a book. For one thing, I liked the book actually. So I saw the movie because I liked the book. So, but I mean, that was fiction. Hey, Verlania, what's up? It's Verlania. It's our Twitch talk buddy.
Hey, what's going down, Verlania?
How you doing, lady? So yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know. I mean, okay, there's true. It's so different than, like, in a way, why don't you make it like you could center it? You know, I mean, I think it would be devastating for them regardless, but you could make the story about the families and their experience. You could make the, okay, Verlania says she can't hear.
Let me put it on there.
Okay, can you hear now?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can she hear?
Can you hear now?
Testing. She should be able to hear.
Yeah. Oh shit. Okay, I just turned
Hold on, let me check.
okay.
I can tell you right now.
Well, she's on the Facebook Live. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I know that gets fucked up. Okay, I just turned
Hold on, let me check.
are you on the Facebook?
I can tell you right now. Also, Jody's on YouTube right now.
Hi, Jody.
Jody wanted to say peace, and she put on there, I'm dyslexic too. And she also said that I thought the Dahmer series was good.
Okay.
Also, Jody's on YouTube right now.
Fuck. Okay. I'm talking. I have my device on. I'm not hearing anything. God damn it. What the fuck? Wow. It's so weird. We were having problems last week too.
So your Facebook Live isn't working?
I don't think so. It doesn't seem to be working.
Let me see. I'm on there right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. There is no sound.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Let me try a different device.
All right, we're gonna go to a song real quick.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks everybody. We're gonna take a break and go for a song.
Yo, this is that dude, the Duck Two Brain. This is your boy DJ Rowe. We get down. It's the water, baby, the water.
You will be metal into our nation. The delivery, my quiver, the river. Hatred, catastrophe, apostrophe for the beat, and to the penman. With the getaway erasing I wanna go. Safety zone, I feel at home. Rappers home, rappers home.
Today we gotta deal with the beast. That's why I always pray to the east. Yo, and practice what I preach and be sure that I drink on some water. 8 cups a day. It's good for my body. I need it like mama's love it, like food for mama's oven. It's good for my health, more important than man-made wealth. I need it in my body, I need water out of Maserati.
Woo, man, I feel refreshed, man. My soul is feeling it, man. Drenched with the water, man. I was thirsty for a while, but man, I'm feeling it, man. That water, baby, that water. Man, coming up Georgia Street, man. Hooked up with Tiara and Age, man. Woo! Man, they quench that thirst. Water, definitely water.
Adrian, give me please a pen. That's permissible for me to pen with. My environment is in it. Strongest words the word. Cut fresh, slicing meat. Professional. Lime juice and nice. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. For the slice of life. Nice and easy. Easy peasy. All that we get from the struggle makes the flavor spike just right. Words of Afro samurai. Racing, looping through the sky. I have you separator. Mouthpiece on the radio. Follow your soul.
Dope account, be working.
A rapper, a scatter comes through on Samsung digital core. Labor the beat that I've been getting, yeah. Pager, a pager road engineered for water too slow. Delivery, river reverberating. Apostrophe for the beat. My response to the pen man, give me
Wow, so it's been
Hey y'all, help me shout it if you can. On Instagram.
It's the water. The water, baby. Water, the water, baby. Drink up. The water, baby. Drink up, bro. It's the water, baby. The water, baby. The water, baby. Drink up. The water, baby. Drink up. The water, baby. It's the water. The water, baby. It's the water. The water, baby. Drink up. The water, baby. Drink up the water, baby.
Man, it's your boy DJ, bro.
Yeah.
Purified, you know, kidneys clean. You know, the water that cleanses my soul. You know what I'm saying? That's what the water do, man. Plastic day, you're straight. The water, baby. The water, baby. The water, baby. The water, baby.
Yeah. Anna's Global Historian Podcast. This is your boy DJ Rowe. Anna, are you ready to get down?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Hopefully we're back on. Verlania, I thank you for letting us know. We appreciate you very much, man. We have been having, and yeah, Verlania did some of the letters and was real involved in making the mural. So, which of course was beautiful because she's very fucking talented. So wait. Oh, okay. So what did Jody say about the Dahmer thing?
She said she liked the series.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, but I mean, people are gonna make stories about. There just is this fascination, and I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want to. I'm trying to think. I mean, you know, I'll watch a true crime thing if there's something interesting historically or socially or politically about it, but I I don't know. I mean, I think it's a whole 10-part series or something.
Yeah,
So
that's what I heard. I saw
yeah.
someone post that they made it all the way to series 8. So I was like, man, that's a long series.
A lot to say. I've been watching this show called Reservation Dogs on Hulu. It's really good. It's about a group of indigenous teenagers on a reservation in Oklahoma. So Mario, a young man I know, had posted about it, saying it was really good. And I especially like to, I mean, with the young people I know, if they think something's interesting, I like to check it out because I want something. It means it gives me something to relate to them about. And I spent a lot of time with Mario when he was little, and he's a little kid. So I'm like, okay, hey, what's Mario interested in now? It is a good show. It really is. It is indigenous. All the actors are indigenous, the producers, the directors, and all of that. It is a full-on indigenous piece of work, which is just so important. And we've talked about that before. That comes up on Najee's podcast. Like, yeah, you can have some diversity on stage, but you need to have diverse voices telling the stories and directing and producing, and just at every level, just full on, because it's all part of telling the story. It's all part of integrity. So these kids are just great. And it's funny because now it just seems like almost every show I see now, the main character, there will be like some imaginary figment. Like in Woke, the main character Sharpie the main character is a cartoonist, and one of his Sharpies had a personality and would talk to him. And so one of the characters in this show has like a spirit guide person, native guide that talks to him. Almost every show I watch now has that. It's just what they do. It has a cool soundtrack, and the kids are they're just great. And the whole they say shit ass all the time. They call each other shit ass. So you have to, if I start saying shit ass, you can blame it on Res Dogs. But I mean, I like that it's a group of like boys and girls, they're teenagers. I can call them boys and girls. I mean, none of them are dating each other. They're friends. I like seeing shows. I like any show or any story that highlights friendship, because romantic relationships just get so much attention and everything. And friendship is just so interesting and important. The people that play their parents are great. And one of the things I like about it is that it starts off and you realize they're all grieving the loss of a friend of theirs, somebody from one of their real close friends who've taken their own life. And but then you gradually find out more about them, and you find out that one of them is in foster care. One of them had lost her mother, and you just see that one of them has a totally absent father who says he'll come visit and doesn't. And you see how much loss these young people are living with, and that's just something they're carrying around. And what they're talking about mostly because they do talk about him, is the friend that took his own life. But all these other losses are just their reality. So I liked that it didn't shove that in your face, that it let you gradually get to know them and see what they're like. And yeah, there's a great character that's a tribal cop, and a character that there's like uncles and stuff like, and I really thought that it was supposed to take place in the 90s because there's so many scenes. There's a lot of scenes of the kids just like hanging out, talking to each other, and none of them are on phones. And I didn't think it was contemporary at all because they weren't on their phones. But then they actually do show some text. So I was like, okay, well, I guess they don't have smartphones or something. But it was really fucking nice to see them all engaging with each other so much and just not being on their phones. So yeah, and they call each other the Res Dogs, and it starts off with them. It's just a good with them like stealing a truck or something. And yeah, the whole look of it, the soundtrack. So yeah, thank you, Mario Madrigal, for turning me on to that. The last night, and it was renewed for series 3 and for 3rd season, and that's really cool. And I'm just saying, like, fuck yeah, Hulu. I mean, I don't think do we know yet if Woke was renewed for a 3rd season?
I never really watched Woke like that because you said it's on Hulu.
It is.
So I'd have to pay for Hulu.
It's like $6.
Oh, it's only $6. Maybe I might do it.
You can get it for real cheap. Yeah, and especially you can get it for you can get a trial period and watch it. So yeah, if you get it with the commercials, I think you can get it for about $8. I had it without commercials for a long time, and then I started to get it with commercials just to save the money. But there's really not that many commercials at all. I mean, it's real reasonable. So yeah, I mean, I don't know when Age hadn't seen it either. And I'm like, Age is the whole reason I even know about it. So I don't know. I'm just culturally voracious. I went to the opera on Sunday, Eugene Onegin, which is a Russian opera, and I listened to a ton of opera in German, and you kind of have to make operas are so long and complicated, you kind of have to make it's like you're making a commitment in a way if you're going to get into opera. And I even I'll have it going when I'm walking or the gym or something, but they're just so fucking long. And so after I listened to German opera just for the same operas just dozens and dozens of times, I could distinguish the words and understand. I mean, I don't necessarily know what the words mean, but A, you sort of learn some of them, and B, you can understand more, you can hear more that it's speech. But that was after it's not a song. But I haven't listened to any Russian opera in a long time. And so yeah, it's one I like a lot. So I'll be going to see it a couple more times probably, because they have rush tickets now. And yeah, I mean, opera is expensive. It's expensive to produce. I mean, and so yeah, so I have kind of cheap seats that are way high up. So yes, Res Dogs is really fucking good. And Eugene Onegin next week, and then this coming week, I'm gonna go see Antony and Cleopatra, which is a opera by John Adams, who's a modern composer. And I've never heard any of his operas, and I'm always interested to go check out modern composers and see how people are trying to do this art form. But one of the reasons I never saw it was because I went to Seattle Opera for years, and they didn't have they didn't show John Adams operas there because because he uses microphones, and the general director of the Seattle Opera does not believe that it's really opera if you use microphones. See, I remember we've been doing this show for a while, because I remember having a conversation about this with you, and you were asking me all about that, like. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of the things. Like Andrea Bocelli was somebody that people thought that people were like, oh, he's an opera singer. Well, no, he's not, because he sings with mics. He can be, you can like his music, but yeah, you can think he's a great singer, but if he sings with mics, he's not singing opera. So yeah, that's just how it is. That's one of the reasons that opera has subtitles, even when it's a language that you understand, it's still hard to understand everything they're saying. And so Spate was speaking one time, and so he demonstrated to us how much clearer things are in a microphone, just in speech. However, there's a ton of like popular music where I don't know what the fuck they're saying at all. So yeah, but anyway, so I'll be interested in that. It's a world premiere, and so my dad was like, I'm not interested in it, and I was like, yeah, but so. Okay, I got in a discussion with a friend of mine the other day who, yeah, she's never on Facebook, so I don't need to worry about her listening to this. She's the biggest fucking know-it-all I know. And she's the sort of person where like, and she is, she's a very interesting person, very smart. But everything she says, you'll make a comment or something, and she'll start going off on it, and like, I'm educating you about this. I'm like, no, you're not educating me about it, because I know. And okay, so we had this discussion. She said, well, like, basically, we all come from Africa. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, there's people that think that. And she's like, no, it's a scientific fact. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, and I said, I know it is. I know that I know that a lot of established scientists say that, but I don't understand like, how did people get from Africa to other continents? I mean, doesn't that sort of seem like an obvious problem with that theory?
Well, I disagree. I think people can branch off into other areas.
How did they get to Australia from Africa?
How do you get from America to Australia?
This was thousands of years ago, Roselle.
You don't think they couldn't have had boats? They couldn't have, I hate to say it, boats.
They did not. They're talking about like thousands of years ago.
I'm saying, you don't think they had boats? You don't think they have ways of travel?
That could get
horses?
Africa.
Horses?
You can't take a horse. You can't take a horse from Africa.
I mean, you could take. But I'm just saying, there's different ways. There's boats. I believe they could have horses.
there were no motors or anything, but you could not, there is no way that a boat that there was technology to
You
get
could row a
to.
boat, like row a boat. You know how you row it? Use this.
You could row a boat. Can we pull up some maps and look at the distance that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, even like Romans, they used to have boats with people on there that would row the boat to get where they wanted to go. That's like fact.
Yeah, but that was like canals and rivers. They weren't crossing oceans to get to different continents.
They did cross oceans too, though. That's
Okay,
fact.
we need to no, I mean, because if for the Romans to get up to the Middle East and conquer shit, they would be like crossing like okay, we need
oceans. They had to go past oceans to get there.
Not
so
to
they
get,
had to
not to get from Italy to, it's a sea, not an ocean, for one thing. It's not that, it's a much smaller, we have to look at.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think you have to look that up because I disagree on that one. I think they could have done it. I think people can venture off. They can do it. If anybody can go.
How did people get from Africa to North America?
I don't know. They could have went by boat. They could have traveled. I don't know. They could have had a horse. They could have had horses.
You can't take a horse from Africa to North
But you
America.
could catch a boat. You could do a boat. You could put horses on a boat. If you have to, it can be done. You
can't row a boat across the ocean?
They used to do it. If you have like a big cruise ship, really, Anna, come on now. You've never heard when they talk about pirates and people on the sea and all these different things. How do you think they did it?
Okay, that some of the stuff that's like 600 years ago. This is like 30,000 years ago.
Really, Anna? Now you're gonna make it 30,000 years ago, and you don't think at any point nobody was able to have a boat?
They had boats, but not big, and I don't think the boats were big enough to were big.
I think you should research that one. I think you should really research that one.
But you need to research it too, because I was looking it up. I was looking it up this afternoon, trying to figure out, trying to find where else that question was at. Because hey, that's a big deal, man. Are you gonna tell indigenous Australians and indigenous North Americans that they're not indigenous to here?
Well, you never know. I don't know. They could possibly not be indigenous. I don't know, but I just think that they could have came from Africa and found their way to North America, Australia. They could have done it.
Stuff I'm reading says it was 30,000 years ago.
But they had boats. There's still ways. They had boats. They had horses. They still could do it. You're just thinking of it in a modern way. Maybe nowadays you wouldn't want to catch a boat.
In a modern way. I'm the historian here. I'm looking at what the boat, I'm looking at the Vikings. When were the Vikings? Because the Vikings made it from Northern Europe to North America, and I think that was about like the years 12.
Oh, I'm gonna pull up Vikings. Let's see something here.
Vikings. Let's see when they did their thing. No, I've been looking it up because I decided that I was because I don't understand why that question is not being asked in other places. But I think you need to look at maps, man, because it is pretty fucking far to get to Australia, to get, and then if they were trying to, hey, I forgot I have now I have like a lot of fucking devices. Okay, well, I'm looking at Google Earth, just try and figure out like how far. Yeah. Okay, they have like a glacier. Okay, they have like a glacier or something here. Because they're something I thought was Africa, something I thought was Australia isn't even okay, I'm trying to look at like how hard it would be to get to Australia from Africa. It is really, really far away. Okay, now here's something I remember hearing about in grade school.
Okay.
now this actually, oh, go ahead. What did you find?
No, go ahead.
No, you first.
Well, I know the Viking age when the Vikings were pretty much around was 793 to 1066 AD.
Okay. AD?
Yes,
I don't,
AD.
yeah,
So it's
AD.
a
Okay, yeah,
period during the middle boats.
you know what makes more sense to me was something I read. I remember seeing something in grade school where you look at all the continents and see how they could fit together. Look at the
Well, I'm
shape.
just saying, they done went to North America, Western Europe, Central Europe. Hold on here. Trade centers. They went to a lot of different places, man. I don't. You'd have to explain how they did it. They went all the way. They were able to make it all the way to Persia. I don't know. You're
Okay,
gonna have to explain that to me.
Okay, so they were, okay, I better get to Google Maps because Google Earth is kind of like not helping me very much here.
I mean, I'm just kind of looking at some of the places they were able to get to a lot of places to trade. So I'm just, if they were able to go to all these places just to trade, I mean, I don't see how someone wouldn't be able to make it from Africa to Australia.
Okay, so if they were in, okay, so the Vikings were in, okay, so first off, for the Italians to get over to the for the Romans to get to the Middle East and conquer stuff, that's not really that's not nearly as like a lot of that they could do over land to get to the Middle East, and the body cross, like I remember I said, okay, they needed to cross the Mediterranean Sea. And that's not nearly so big, man. I mean, you know, there's migrants crossing it in inflatable boats. I mean, a lot of them die, but some of them do make it. So, yeah, but that's different than crossing the Atlantic Ocean to get to North America and getting to Australia. But here's what makes more sense to me was I remember when in grade school or something where they said that when you look at the shapes of the continents, you could see how they all once fit together. Look at the shapes. Can't you see how that would work?
So you believe they fit together?
I'm not so, not necessarily.
So, but okay, so even with that theory,
it would make more sense to me if they all fit together and then broke apart. I know that doesn't, I have not seen this scientific. I mean, this was just, I don't know why this was talked about in great, I mean, but seriously, I mean, look how South America and Africa could fit together. The pieces, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So anyway, I mean, I know.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you this right now.
Okay.
There's actually a cruise that you can take from Cape Town, South Africa to Australia. It takes 16 days, but you can do it. I'm just saying. You said. What I'm saying is, though, it can be done. They're doing it. It can be done.
Come on, man, you're just fucking with me. Of course,
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, how can you say that? I mean, if they had
because they didn't have like now this, because I'm talking about what they would have had like 30,000 years ago.
Yeah, they would have had a big crew of people that's on the boat.
We wouldn't have had
all right, let me pull this. Let me see how many people a pirate ship can hold.
Okay,
if they have
when. Okay, so supposedly like there was a lot of like traveling and exploration, all that in the 14 and 1500s. I've seen like pictures of boats from that then. But you know, they're talking about prehistoric times. They're talking about like look at the 1,000, you know, like a long time ago.
This is my feelings. If they were able to make pyramids, why would they not be able to make boats to go from Africa to Australia?
Because you can't drown. Because you're not going to drown.
If you're on a boat, if you're on any kind of boat, and let's just say you have a crew of 100 and some people that are rowing the boat, it may take you longer than 16 days to get there, but it can be done.
A lot longer than 16 days. In that era, like, okay, they would have had to carry water with them, and
in that era, they used to walk hundreds of miles. But we don't do that now.
Walk hundreds of miles. That's different than crossing.
So wait a minute. How is it that they can walk hundreds of miles, but they can't get a boat and make a boat to go from Africa to Australia? You gotta explain that to me.
Drown, because you can't drown walking hundreds.
They had boats. They did not drown. The Vikings had boats. They did not drown.
The Vikings are quite a while after the period they're talking about.
But I'm still saying the boats came from somewhere. Eventually, boats were made. You do not think it's possible that they could have made boats that were good enough to make it all the way over there? I mean, there had to be boats from somewhere. They had to learn how to make them from somewhere, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they had boats, but to get that,
you see my argument. My argument here is you're believing that they couldn't have had boats, but they had boats back then. So for the Vikings to be able to make boats, they had to know, someone had to show them how to make boats. They just didn't come out of nowhere making boats.
The Vikings were hundreds and hundreds of years after the people that were taught that.
But I still get it, but there still had to be boats somehow. There had to be boats.
Because it's not even just boats. You'd have to be able to carry your water. You'd have to have food. So I don't know. So
I don't know. You can, if you have a big boat. I mean, they used to do it a long time ago. They carry the food and put water on the boat.
Yeah, I know, but this is.
And you also forget in between certain places there could be islands and certain things that, you know, we're not really we're more modernized now, so we don't know how to do that stuff. But there could have been places they stopped at. They could have went fishing. They could have fished for their own food. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, they could have fished. They could have, who knows what they had.
I wasn't there, but I just think
basically, so everybody left this one continent and went to become indigenous elsewhere. Basically,
that's kind of the same thing with the whole Christopher Columbus story.
But Christopher, I mean,
it's the same kind of difference. You go somewhere else.
Christopher Columbus was hundreds and hundreds of years after the time we're
but
talking
I'm
about.
saying, but you don't think eventually, like, people have been doing that way before him, that there could have been people going to different lands just to, go there, and eventually over time they've been there so long, it's
so they basically so they went to other continents and developed their own languages and cultures and I don't know. It would make a lot more sense. It makes more sense to me. Okay, like if animals and trees were everywhere, why wouldn't people be also? It just make, but yeah.
No, that's a good point. I see your point now, but I'm still seeing also the Christopher Columbus theory, where you get people that come from Europe, come to the United States and establish themselves as the United States and make their own area out of it. It's kind of the same synopsis to me.
But that's way later, and
But-
that there was political reasons for that, and like way back in the era we're talking about, the politics weren't as complicated or anything.
But you don't think that other people could have before then thought the same way, that hey, maybe we're in this area, that maybe we need to branch off and go to other areas. This area is maybe getting too big, or maybe we need to find new land, and other people couldn't have did the same thing before that time?
1,000 years.
You might not know about it,
a couple
but it
thousand
could have
years
happened.
before.
It could have happened.
Thousands of years. Thousands.
It
Seriously, I
could have happened. It could have happened. I kind of believe like this: if they can make pyramids, they can make a boat. They can go from Africa to Australia, Africa to any other land.
I don't think the pyramids are really that complicated. They make, they're just made out of bricks.
But you act like a boat. Why would why would a boat be more complicated than a pyramid?
It's a lot more. Well, they would have to have they wouldn't have had maps. They wouldn't have known where they were going. That doesn't make sense.
But what I'm saying is, how do you know that they didn't have their own version of maps of figuring out where they wanted to go? Well, or even if they, let's say they didn't. Let's just say that maybe they had some way of saying, okay, we're going to go this way to see what's this way. Maybe they were just exploring.
Well, because archaeologists for one, maps would have been, if they'd had maps, they would have been found. Archaeologists would have found maps. And they would have found I'm sure they had, like we're talking about like inventions of, you could have made it, but that's the piece, that's one of the pieces that's real complicated. You think you'd get a big enough boat to put people on it just to go see what was out there?
That's kind of what Christopher Columbus did.
But it was way later.
How do you know they couldn't have done it then too? Why does it have to be just that time? How do you know other people didn't think of the same thing? I'm just curious how someone else couldn't.
Because it was thousands of years before.
But even though it's thousands of years before, someone couldn't have just decided to venture off to see what there is. That couldn't happen.
It's a pretty long ass trip to just venture off and see what there is.
Well, if you're a king and you just feel that you can do anything, and your people treat you like a god, so you feel that, hey, I can go and find other lands and have people go and do it. You don't think that's possible? Like they kind of did to Christopher Columbus. It could happen. It could have happened in thousands and thousands of years too.
I'm just trying to read up more because I've heard of it. The way it's said a lot of the time is just so fucking sentimental. Like, oh, we're all Africans. I'm sort of in a way, I've always been skeptical of what people mean by saying that, for one thing. So it has this whole there's a cultural element to it, which I think is sort of which doesn't really make sense to me. And yeah, but that is just to me, that is just the simple logical, how did people get from Africa all the way over to Asia, all across Asia, all across?
I believe it can happen if you venture off, if you have a boat. I don't know what kind of boat they made or whatever they did, but if they have empires of people, and I saw it on the History Channel how they had empires And like they would have boats with hundreds of people. They'd have these big boats and they would just venture on looking for land. I mean, I think it could be done. I'm sorry, I hate to say it. I think it can be done.
That's why
I personally think it can be done. I think we don't always know because that's thousands and thousands of years ago. But I think there were still people that were smart enough to be able to venture off into other areas.
Exactly, which is why I'm like, yeah, I know that because now I've been reading about the history of them. Because it's happened through DNA breakthrough. So I'm reading about the history of it was like developments in DNA, and not even just developments in the sequencing, and then also when they could even find people, like how do you even like getting DNA samples of people, like figuring out your different DNA samples from people and fitting them together. And so according to what a lot of stuff I read today said was that, the DNA all goes back to Africa. That is what a lot of them say.
That kind of answers its own question a little bit, right?
It doesn't answer my question about how people got to be other places.
Well, evidently they must have figured it out if they all got the same DNA from Africa, right?
Or maybe DNA isn't, because in a way, or maybe DNA isn't as maybe people's DNA isn't as different or as similar as you think. I mean, to me, I'm just like, okay, if all this other stuff, if the mountains and the trees and the animals and all of that have all been here for thousands of years, why wouldn't people have originated here too? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, but that's just, I guess in a way, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the sentiment, I know that, I mean, to me, it is a real obvious question. And so I was looking around trying to find answers to it. So that is one of the things I was trying to work on too, because I can't be the only one that's trying to figure that out. So yeah. If I get any clarity, we'll come back to it, because I don't know. I'm just so I mean, I don't know. I mean, just I guess it's partially like how is this information used? How is it politicized or however, like, okay, because if you're talking about your DNA, your ancestry, I'm just kind of suspicious of it, of the whole, I mean, I think that trying to figure out who was first and where do people come from, and I mean, it's an interesting question. But
then the next question would be, if you wanted to figure that out, is how did every person end up in these different continents?
Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about.
No, but I'm saying, how in your version of it, since you said that animals can be everywhere, how did people just spring up everywhere?
Oh, I don't know. But I think if they could spring up in Africa, I don't see why they couldn't spring up in Australia, basically. So yeah, that I don't know how.
But then, yeah, I get it. Okay.
No,
I kind of see that point.
See, that's part of it too. I mean, because when you're talking about like origins, how did people get here in the first place? I mean, yes, I know that there's scientific research. I know they can like date things. They go back and they look at fossils and stuff like that to figure out how old things are.
Right. Because then you'd have to look at, like you were saying with the DNA, if these people originated from Australia, how do they have African DNA?
Well, I guess it's sort of like, well, why wouldn't the DNA be, I don't know, why wouldn't the DNA be similar in a way? But again, I mean, that's,
I was saying is why can't everybody have Australian DNA? You see what I'm saying? They're specifically saying African DNA.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. But if that's the case, why couldn't Africans have Australian DNA?
How do people, and like, look at people that like live in mountains and stuff like that. Look at the people that live in, how do people like get to mountains and all that if they weren't indigenous to there?
It could have, like they just said, they travel there. You catch you get a boat, you find the land. Maybe once you start expanding in the land, some people want to go off and they go into the mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? And we can argue that with animals. It's the same way with animals, how certain animals kind of, like you have snakes, which are all snakes, but certain snakes live in certain areas and they evolved to adapt to those areas. It could be the same way with people.
Well, yeah, because if you're talking about people coming, say if people get to a climate, they get someplace, I mean, they need clothes, they need clothes to get up to different places, and like, okay,
it's the same way with anything. How to close
hike up these mountains and start civilizations there.
Yeah, they did it all the time. Like they used to hunt. They cut up an animal, wear the fur or the hide of the animal, and that's how they did it.
Yeah.
Vikings lived in the cold. How did they do it?
Well, I know that, but if you're going to coming from but that was later for when, but yeah.
Yeah, but generations can, like I said, civilizations can evolve. It's not like,
you have to I mean, if you're coming from, I mean, I'm thinking about like some of the mountains in Peru and all of that, and God, yeah. So
it's like, I don't know. It's the same thing. It's like if you go somewhere and you just evolve to the situation, you just do it.
Okay, what about those uncontacted tribes that we in Brazil that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of think to me, it would make more sense that they've always been there rather than people like came all the way over from Africa to Brazil and went into these, forests and jungles and all of that and built civilizations there. It would make more sense to me that people were just that indigenous people.
But how would they just get there and have the same DNA as African people? Or as African?
Why shouldn't people have the same DNA?
But that's what I'm saying. It still doesn't make sense, because if they all have the same African DNA, at some point, someone from Africa came there to make that DNA. It makes sense once you really, it would have to be that way. Now, I could see if there was a tribe that didn't have no African DNA, but if everybody has African DNA in them, at one point, somebody originated from Africa and had to have came. It just doesn't, there's no other option. I just don't see how you can see it another way.
Yeah, just because of having like looked at what some of the just sort of looking at what the traveling would have been like people like getting like way far into the Amazon jungle and all that.
But you also got to understand, they might not have just went straight far into the jungle. They might have got to an easier area and the population gets big. So you get other people that venture out.
Well, that's true.
And it keeps going and keeps going. And,
that makes
like
sense.
you said, it could have been deep into the jungle by a certain point. I don't know. But to me, if they all have the same DNA, it's just, I don't know. It just seems like at one point someone had to be from Africa. So they found a way to get there.
Wow.
That's my way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be real. And well, I mean, there's got to be like some speculation about like the transportation or whatever, the transit. I mean, man, that's pretty fucking brave. You're just like getting in a boat to like cross an ocean without even knowing what's there.
Dude, that's thousands and thousands of years ago. They probably was living rough wherever they were at that point. Them going in the ocean was probably not even, like for us, I could see us like how we are nowadays. Yes.
Yeah.
Half of us would have a problem going from here to LA. We would almost die going from here to LA if we could, we couldn't have a hotel room, and half of us would be like, oh no, we can't do it. But back then it was hardcore. It was hardcore back then.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely. Okay. On that note, let's take a break.
All right.
Okay, we'll be back.
Yeah. There you go. Wow. Chandre. What? Hey. Please don't get me started. Extended the clip to 18, now we don't get caught it. Walk into the club, I'm looking for a make the stallion hate on us. I hit your neck, your back, and yaddy, yaddy, yaddy. Break it, it's like this karate. Drip Fiji water. You don't gotta wonder that bitch with me like a stalker. I got beat up in the field. US famous soccer. Hey. Fucking game is only proper. I'm a cow ridden house. I walk around with a chopper. Get the poppin', all these corny niggas forward. Rock the middle finger to the coppers. And my oppas in the pots and hit your noggin out your body. Hit your noodle top run. Yeah, don't get me started. I am Caesar, let it pepper. After cartridge when insulted, I'm assaulted. Said you king, you was lying, you move faster. So I stopped them out once I dropped them. It's a riot in this bitch, 40 goons like Alibaba. It's a dying in this bitch, 45 knock off your stomach. If you die up in this bitch, my ambulance is coming for you. 96 Honda, try me, I get started. Please don't get me started. Extended the clip to 18, now we don't get caught it. Walk into the club, I'm looking for a make the stallion hate on us. I hit your neck, your back, and body, yaddy, yaddy. Break a bitch like it's karate. Drip Fiji water. You don't gotta wonder that bitch with me like a stalker. I got beat up in the field. US women's soccer. Hey, kicking game is only proper. Well, I started, got a GD, still retarded. Gang banging, made me the smartest. Don't remember you for the hardest. One call for the copy, little homies, couple of bullshit. Pick whatever they grab and cock it. Pick whatever they can rob and lock it. Chandre, every season I legal old bay. I be trying to get her for the bag while y'all trying to rack legs. I keep it simple while y'all on that rich and add eggs. Family guy, I got the lowest while y'all on that giggity giggity. Carnivore, red to sea like a dinosaur. I'm coming like Ola Major. You don't know me like Christian Dior. All on the floor with a dime. Give me some more like Busta Rhymes. When climax, we commit crimes. If you're Amazon, I'm gonna climb. Feeling like Nate, she in a vine. I got what she needs in time. She got Chandre in his prime, so I need her to get back in line. Tony Hawk on my grind. Where's Roland? I'm hard to find. She watching, can't read the signs. Fucking with me costs a fine. Please don't get me started. Extended the clip to 18, now we don't get caught it. Walk into the club, I'm looking for a make the stallion hate on us. I hit your neck, your back, and body, yaddy, yaddy. Break that bitch like this karate. Drip Fiji water. You don't gotta wonder that bitch with me like a stalker. I got beat up in the field. US women's soccer. Hey, kicking game is only proper.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? Anna's Global Podcast Radio. You ready to do this?
Yeah. Okay, so we are public. Yeah, we're done with we're done with prehistoric stuff for now. Moving on to Italy, where the most far right leader since Mussolini has been elected. Anti-immigrant, anti-LGBT. Yeah, and she's a woman. See, I always figure that, like, I mean, there's just theories that if you're, in order to get the real far rights in, they're gonna like pick a woman, because people are gonna a lot of people are gonna think, oh, a woman's not gonna be that bad, but I don't know. I mean, I've seen people like really freaking out about her, and I'm just trying to figure out more about what's going on. But you know, she was buddies with Putin, but is no longer. And she's saying that she wants to restore Italy's status in the European Union. That's always like kind of dangerous far right territory, because that's what Trump was, you know, that was Trump's thing. It's like, okay, people need to respect the, you know, we've lost our position and in the world. And yeah, so I'm just trying to learn more about her. I mean, they have a parliamentary system there. So I started reading a book called Why We Don't Have a Woman President Yet, and by a journalist that covered the 2016 and 2020 elections and the midterm elections. And she said that the reason that, because there's countries that you would think are more conservative than the United States, but she was saying the reason that other countries like Pakistan have had women prime ministers is because they have the parliamentary system where leaders are chosen. So so she was saying that, like, if we were operating on a parliamentary system, Nancy Pelosi would have been the president at some point. And that's why so that was kind of interesting. It made me wish again that we had a parliament. I mean, you know, every system has its pluses and drawbacks. But like in Great Britain, in England, the prime minister is elected by the members of parliament. So that's how they've wound up having more women leaders, a lot more women leaders than we have, because they're picked by a smaller group of people. And sort of the people that are already in power, they choose. So that's how it works out. I mean, that's why other countries get women leaders. And so she was going back over one of her accounts was she was talking, so this lady, the author, was talking about how her boyfriend was talking about Burn Dog and was saying that he really liked the fact that Burn Dog obviously didn't care how his hair looked, because his hair's a mess. And that she said she just lost it and was like, you know, because a woman could never, a woman with messy hair is, you know, there's so much pressure and attention on how female leaders look that, you know, if a woman showed up with, like, you know, if a woman's hair looked messy, you know, she wouldn't get elected dog catcher. So, but yeah, so she's saying it's not just sexism, but I don't know. And that she was saying that, like, after all the like the reason that Kamala just went through so much on the campaign trail, that she's just kind of real hesitant, and that's why people haven't really gotten to know her as the vice president. So yeah. Then I was also reading about Ciceretta Jones, who was a Black woman who sang opera between her parents. She was the children of she was the daughter of formerly enslaved people, and just loved to sing, was singing when she was young, and sang in her church, and went to Europe you know, she sang in Madison Square Gardens. And then what she did, so she was kind of one of the first singers that was real, what we would call now crossover success. So what she did, wound up doing, she was called the Black Patty, because there was a famous European singer whose last name was Patty. So they called her the Black Patty, which she didn't like, but you know, people get stuck with names. So what she wound up doing was basically putting together her own like vaudeville show called Black Patty's Troubadours. The entire show was, you know, there'd be like comics and dancers, and then she was just kind of the star of the show and come out at the end and sing. And they got their own train car so that they could go all over the place, and not their own, well, their own, God, was it their own train, so that they, because wait, they couldn't have all stayed in one train car. And so that was, so they will, because that way they could go everywhere and not need to deal with segregated accommodations. And so she had her own troupe, basically. I mean, her own thing going on for about 10 years, and she was really highly paid. I mean, they gave the breakdowns of what, you know, what she was making, you know, she was one of the highest, she was like the highest paid Black entertainer in the country. And so she was, you know, people would ask her, and so there were just constant articles about, you know, her looks with just, I mean, very racist comments that people thought were compliments, basically, you know. And she was asked if she would ever yeah, but she never kept a diary. So it was sort of a strange book, because there were no letters of hers were found. There were just a few interviews, and her voice was never recorded. So nobody, which is sad. So nobody knows I mean, her voice was described, but nobody knows what she sounded like. But then she, apparently, I mean, even like she had, like as so often, her husband managed her career, and I guess that they did pretty well with that for a while, but then he turned into like a drunk and ripped her off. So she divorced him, and he had an affair and had a child, but told the child that Ciceretta Jones was his mother. I don't know how the kid like fell for that. Like, I don't know, maybe he was just told that the person raising him was like his aunt or something. But at one point later in her life, this kid that thought he was her son showed up and found out that he wasn't. I mean, you know, it's like, it's, you know, it's not that, you know, I mean, it's easy to lie about who a father is, but God, lying about who somebody's mother is, that's difficult. But I guess he did it anyway. She sang for 4 presidents. So it's weird. I mean, she kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It seems like there was a time when there was more progressive movements, and there was more integration in the arts, and then it just all shut down again. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, so she wasn't able, she was asked, then she was at later in her life, there was a Black opera company that wanted her to come perform with them, but she was already committed to her own troupe, to the troubadours, to her own company, basically. So she didn't. But I mean, that was one of Marian Anderson, the Black opera singer, needed to do a whole lot of recitals, and so she was an opera singer because she sang opera in her recitals, but she really wasn't able to be in very many operas because of segregation. And she wasn't, by the time she was finally able to perform at the Metropolitan Opera, she was a lot older and her voice wasn't as, maybe not as good as it had been. But I have a recording of that performance from the 50s because it's an opera I love, and I just want to hear Marian Anderson whenever. So yeah. Okay, so in Ukraine, let me get to my. So, okay, let me get to my drive here. Okay, so Russians are trying to get out of Russia because basically Putin sent out, he's basically trying to like take all the men, basically. He's basically trying to draft the entire country. And so
wow.
Yeah. So people are just trying to get out. And there's, oh shoot, yeah, we should go. Oh yeah, we should show the videos. I'm trying to see if I have one. Like basically, he's set up camps on the borders, trying to get people. And yeah, so there's videos of these huge trails of people just trying to leave. Because man, you reach that point, you're basically just asking people to come get killed. You start calling up like all the men, people that are not soldiers, that are not trained or nothing. You're basically just trying to like get bodies out there. So I think I have one in the YouTube playlist. Let's do some of the videos.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
You want to start with the first one?
Yeah.
You might be asking yourself, can you actually create high-quality live streams for...
These Azeri graves have been neglected for more than 30 years. The village was destroyed in fighting in the early 1990s when the Armenian army occupied this area. 2 years ago, the Armenian military was forced out in a 6-week war that claimed 6,500 lives. A new village has been built so many Azeris can return.
The statue you see represents peace and hope for us. We hope we can solve this problem without fighting.
But there are fears that a fragile peace may be unravelling. Both sides blame each other for a recent upsurge in fighting that killed more than 200 soldiers. This village is the first village in this area to have been rebuilt since the Azeri military took back control of this area in 2020 after what they say was 30 years of Armenian occupation. And the people coming back to live here say that despite the recent escalation of violence, some of which happened close to here, they are determined to stay. The Selimova family are one of almost 70 families who've moved back so far. Firanges cries as she listens to her daughter describe what happened when they fled 29 years ago. She says she won't let her daughter's childhood be destroyed like hers was.
Our children have to be here. We have to bring them up here because we won this land back with the blood of our soldiers.
The government-built village has shops, a school and a workshop where women get paid to make medical clothing and masks.
It feels incredible to be back. The last 30 years of our life was bad. We lived in camps and often on the streets.
Flags fly over the grave of a soldier above the village. There's no agreement on a peaceful solution to the conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. Only hope that the killing will finally stop. Charles Strafford, Al Jazeera, Agali, Azerbaijan.
Muthoni Muthenge says she was repeatedly struck in the legs with an axe when she was detained in a concentration camp run by British colonialists. It was in the 1950s. Her husband was one of the leaders of a rebel movement. Frustrated by colonial land grabbing, its fighters wanted Kenya to have independence from British rule.
They never apologized. Neither did we get compensation. We just came home and suffered in poverty. I spent so much time in detention and our children suffered throughout.
Researchers say British colonial authorities detained hundreds of thousands of people, both fighters, known as Mau Mau, and suspected sympathisers, and killed tens of thousands of them. One of the camps was right here. It's now part of a school. The teachers say this building was where new prisoners were held before being taken in here for interrogations. Castration and rape were used to extract confessions and intelligence, as well as beatings so severe they were often fatal. The crackdown since came to be known as one of the worst atrocities of the British Empire.
As the guns sounded a salute.
An empire of which Queen Elizabeth became the figurehead when she was crowned in 1952. She was visiting Kenya, a British colony at the time, when her father died and she became queen. The Mau Mau rebellion and the brutal crackdown began shortly after. The British government didn't acknowledge the atrocities for more than half a century until 9 years ago, when it compensated a group of about 5,000 torture victims.
The one who was asking...
Paul Mwite was among the lawyers representing them in court in London. He says the settlement was a step forward, but about 200,000 more victims or their surviving descendants were left destitute and deserve compensation for abuses.
The passing away of Her Majesty the Queen presents a wonderful opportunity for the Kenya government to come out, even as they congratulate the new king, come out and request the British government to play their part in bringing an honourable closure to this matter.
Muthoni wasn't among the group who were compensated and says she can't afford a lawyer. Neither is she among those on social media expressing anger at Britain's monarchy or former empire following the Queen's death. But she says it's still not too late for the British government to say sorry and make amends. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera, Mwiga, Kenya.
Do you want to keep going with it, or?
Yeah, let's do, there's two more. Let's do the next two.
Okay, hold on, let me get this.
America's spy agency, the CIA, has many secrets to keep, but to mark its 75th anniversary, it has unusually opened up a little about its past, inviting a select few to visit its normally undercover museum. Our security correspondent Gordon Carrera was the only international broadcaster to be let in. This is what he saw.
One of the most secret organisations in the world offers a rare glimpse inside its operations. To mark its 75th anniversary, the CIA opened the doors to its in-house museum. Closed to the public, we were among a select few given access.
Inside this most unusual of museums are exhibits and artefacts marking the CIA's history and its operations, right from its foundation soon after World War II, through the Cold War and right up to the present day.
Among the 600 artefacts on display are a dead rat in which messages were hidden, a pigeon with a spy camera attached, and even an exploding martini glass. But as the museum's director showed me on a tour, there are also details of more high-profile operations.
And how was this model then used by the agency?
This model is used to brief top policymakers, including the president.
On display is a scale model of the compound where it was suspected Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was hiding in 2011. The level of detail gave President Obama the confidence to approve the mission to go after bin Laden, who was killed in the raid.
Over here we have our newest artifact in the collection.
The most recent exhibit is another model, this time of the compound in Kabul, Afghanistan, where bin Laden's successor, Ayman al-Zawahiri, was killed this July. Some failures, like plots in Cuba and Iraq's missing weapons of mass destruction, do get a mention, although other controversies, like over torture, are downplayed or absent. The intended audience are primarily CIA staff.
This museum is not just a museum for history's sake. This is an operational museum. We are taking CIA officers, exploring our history, both good and bad. We make sure that our officers understand their history so that they can do a better job in the future.
The story begins in...
Amongst the more bizarre stories are how the CIA worked with an eccentric billionaire to come up with a cover story so that a ship could secretly try and recover a wrecked Soviet submarine.
In July of 1974, a gigantic claw goes to the bottom of the ocean, scoops up that submarine, and starts bringing it to the surface.
That story may now be public, but there are others, officials say, still too classified, even for this secret museum. Gordon Carrera.
Is that
BBC
it, or was there
News.
one more?
There's one more after this
All right, hold
about
on.
Russia, actually.
Hold on. Let me do this right, like that. What's on here? Make sure we get it. Ah, here we go. Here we go.
Don't buy another pair of glasses until you've seen what this new invention can do. These self-adjustable glasses are taken.
In Russia, President Putin's order to call up another 300,000 soldiers is being met with widespread protests. Reports have circulated on social media of people with no military experience being drafted, along with others who are too old or people with disabilities. This report by our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg includes some distressing images.
At a military draft office near Moscow, the roll call begins. More Russians mobilized and on their way to fight in Ukraine, and left behind their loved ones. For many here, this war has suddenly become very real. But at this recruitment center, the Russians we spoke to said they supported the draft. I'm in the mood to fight, says Dmitry, an HR manager. Since we've been drafted, we have to serve. This mother says the lads will run about a bit there. They'll lose a bit of weight. It'll be fine. Not everyone is so positive. In Siberia, a recruitment officer was shot and seriously wounded. The gunman reportedly incensed that his friend had been called up to fight. Across Russia, there's been a spate of attacks on enlistment officers. More than a dozen have been set on fire since Vladimir Putin announced the call-up. And this is the Russian Republic of Dagestan. Protests against mobilization. A sign of the anger in Russia's poorer regions, populated by ethnic minority groups, where many feel they are being called up at a disproportionate rate. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin was shown meeting the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, and demanding that the West respect Russia. Not a word about the protests. When the Kremlin says, your country needs you, some Russians are happy to answer President Putin's call. But clearly, many are not. And in some parts of the country, mobilization is sparking social unrest and undermining trust in the authorities. Look at the queues leaving Russia. This is the land border with Georgia. Many Russian men of military age are trying to get out. But for their sons and husbands, a very different journey starts here. Destination, Ukraine and the Kremlin's war. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
Okay, yeah, that's
as
the
soon as
last one.
possible. And to help restore power once the storm passes, and that's both
Yeah, so that last one I especially wanted to show because that's the article I was reading earlier. I mean, you know, he's just sending people out to die. So yeah, that's what they're doing, just trying to get out. So now there's Russian refugees going into Georgia and Ukraine. See, part of this all happened because there's a separatist movement in Ukraine. There's always been a separatist movement of people who say that they're part of Russia. And so there's basically been a civil war going on for a long time. But there's been an election there of people, but nobody really knows whether it's accurate or not because Putin so much controls that area. So I don't know, man. It just seemed that's what war does, it just goes on and on. There are big protests going on in Iran over hijab, over headscarves. A 22-year-old woman was picked up by the morality police, as they're called, in Tehran, the capital, and taken to the police station. She was told she wasn't wearing her hijab properly. And so that happens, and people get what happens a lot is that will happen, and somebody will get like some lecture or something, and then they'll be released. But she died, and the authorities are claiming that she had a heart attack, and her family is saying she was tortured. And so there are now the biggest demonstrations in Iran going on that they've had in a very long time. Women are ripping off their headscarves and burning them, and that is really, really brave. So I don't know, you look at like what people are, it just amazes me to look at the world and see the things that people are contending with. You can get killed by the police for not covering your hair. Her name was Mahsa. So hopefully this murder will do something to improve life for Iranians and for Iranian women especially, but men are oppressed too. So yeah, there's pictures of her everywhere. So that's just really sad. Yeah. So that's kind of the international wrap up. Yeah. So what else is going on? Do you have shows? Do you have any shows this weekend?
No, not this weekend.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And so we had a good run with Twitch Talk. And so, it might rise again in a different form, basically, never give up. But, some stuff you just, stuff's not going like you want, you need to like put it aside. But So you saw the invitation I made for next month?
Yes, I did.
Okay, gotta invite people because we'll see how, that's gonna be all DJs, all DJ night. So we'll see how that goes. They're having a goth night there, I think, this weekend. So yeah, I know. So I'm gonna walk by, I think, and just kind of see what it looks like, what their DJ nights look like for other, I know. And yeah, I got a email back from Teddy Dorsett, who spoke from National Black Death Advocates, who spoke at the Bayard Rustin Symposium last year. I invited him back and he said yes. It's just real complicated, and to try and get, to try and convey what I'm trying to do, and because it's just so hard to communicate with people in advance about what they're doing. But I have a real cool keynote, Dr. Kirby Lynch. Real excited to have her on board. I think she'll bring in more people. And I don't know, it's weird because it just all seems to happen so fast. I just kind of feel like now, I don't want the Bayard Rustin Symposium to, I don't know, sometimes I don't want to like make it repetitious, but it's also just kind of a tradition too. And I feel like, okay, people kind of expect it now. Yeah. So I think that's all I got for tonight.
All right.
Okay.
Well.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Verlania. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes.
Yes. And we'll see you next week.
Definitely.